What if everything you believed about narcissists and karma was wrong? People often say narcissists get their karma when they grow old, when they lose their charm, when they end up alone. They picture the narcissist broken, pitiful, abandoned by the very people they once used and manipulated. All of that is true. But what if I told you that karma does not come later? That karma has already hit them. You were their karma. You were the person who entered their life with purity, the one who brought them love without agenda, the one who offered redemption. And you did all of that through sincerity, through devotion, and through your soul. Unfortunately, they rejected you. They sabotaged what was sent to heal them, and that is not just karma, it is spiritual annihilation. I am Danish, a narcissistic abuse recovery professional. In today's episode, I want to prove to you that you were the narcissist's biggest karma. I'm going to give you 5 reasons, so let's get started with number 1. You reflected the truth they could not hide from. You weren't just a person, another source of supply. You were a mirror, a divine, shimmering, untampered mirror. One that showed them exactly what they were, not the curated version, not the image or persona they posted on social media. You reflected their spiritual poverty, their emotional hollowness, and their pathological dishonesty through your presence. But what did all of that do to them? It scorched them. You were put into their life with a double mission, whether you know it or not. As an ancient soul, you were there to offer them their only true chance at love, one that asked nothing, demanded no mask, and required only vulnerability. And secondly, you were sent to make them meet themselves, the real self, the one they have been running from since childhood, the one they buried under arrogance, lies, manipulation, and grandiosity. Every time you loved them, it activated something unbearable, like a deep confrontation with their own brokenness, their rottenness. Because you were not just loving them, you were loving the very parts they had learned to reject. They couldn't stand it. They didn't want to see it. And in their desperation to escape the mirror, what did they do? They shattered it. The proof of all of this is those moments of vulnerability when they told you they're a bad person and they don't deserve you. Of course, they were trying to weaponize your empathy, but there was a part of them that meant all of those things. They knew you were the mirror. You were the one person who could fix them, that you were the light to their darkness, yet they did not like what you shed light on, what you made visible to them. In shattering you, they shattered their only gateway to transformation, and now everywhere they go, they search for peace, but they keep finding fragments of themselves they thought they had buried. That is what happens when you throw away the one person who showed you your soul. Reason number 2, your growth reveals their spiritual failure. Every soul comes to this earth with some tests. Some come to learn boundaries, some come to learn surrender, some come to become whole, to break ancestral patterns of violence, greed, or betrayal. And the narcissist, they were sent here to overcome their obsession with control, superiority, entitlement, and false identity. Their test was you, the embodiment of truth, compassion, and light. But they failed the test, not because they didn't know, but because they did not care. Your growth, emotional, spiritual, financial, and relational, is a constant reminder that they chose the path of spiritual death. That while you evolved, they remained stuck in the same looping nightmare disguised as power. You became the living proof of everything they denied, rejected, and mocked. It isn't just that you moved on, it is that you became what they always pretended to be: whole, happy, and authentic. That is the karma. Because when you rise, they sink all the way down. Not because you pushed them down, but because they had the same chance and they wasted it. Now every time they hear your name, see your work, witness your peace, they're reminded that they did not just lose you, they lost themselves. Number 3, you gave them unconditional love they could not reciprocate. You were the divine intervention they never expected. You were God's way of saying, here is what real love feels like. You came into their world, not to hurt them, of course not, but to hold them, to show them that love does not always come with control, drama, and conditions. It can be quiet, steady, healing. But for someone who has kept everything in the dark, who has hidden their wounds under performance, power, and manipulation, your love was blinding. Because when real light enters a dark room, everything hiding in the corners becomes visible, as I was explaining. They hated that. It wasn't you they hated, it was what your presence revealed. What you offered was sacred. You didn't love them for their image, you loved the child inside, the neglected, abused, forgotten part of them they never dared to touch. That wasn't just love, that was God loving them through you. But what did they do? They rejected it because it didn't feed their ego, it fed their soul, and their soul is the one thing they have been at war with. That is why they didn't just discard you, they discarded divinity. Let that sink in. That's why I call them demons. Number 4, your absence hurts them more than your presence ever did. They thought losing you would be a relief. You know, their obsession with novelty. That once you stopped asking for respect, honesty, and connection, they would finally have peace. But instead, they discovered something terrifying. You were the peace. You were the only silence in their mind that wasn't filled with self-loathing. The only presence in their life that was not transactional. And now that you're gone, there is a void that no chaos can fill. They try to replace you. Clones, copies, other sources of supply, soulless interactions, but nothing feels right because deep down they know you weren't just nice, you were sacred. And there is no way to recreate sacredness through strategy. You were the kind of person you meet once in a lifetime, and when you lose that, you spend the rest of your life pretending you do not miss it. They will never admit it, but their life has been a silent funeral since you left. Because the death they feared was not physical, it was energetic. It was the death of connection, of meaning, of real reflection. And you were the last one who saw them for who they were and still chose to stay until you did not. Reason number 5, you triggered the deepest insecurity. Can you guess what that is? Being exposed. Narcissists walk around with an illusion of being untouchable, invincible, all-knowing. They survive on what? Manipulation, mystery, and fear. But when they met you, something broke. You did not buy into the persona. You saw the scared child behind the mask, the pain behind the anger, the lies behind the confidence. And worst of all, you did not react. You did not crumble. You did not worship them. You stayed centered, calm, and awake. And that drove them mad. Because people who are spiritually bankrupt cannot tolerate someone who is spiritually full. You were stable, steady, and you had something they could not steal: integrity. Every moment spent with you reminded them of what they would never be. I've said it so many times. They weren't afraid of being caught. They were afraid of being seen. Because the moment they are seen, their whole game ends. And you did not just see them. You stood in front of them like a cosmic mirror, unwavering, holding up a reflection they could not twist or run from. That is why they had to destroy you, because you made their delusion impossible to maintain. That is the reality. So no, you were not just a chapter they skimmed through. You were the sacred assignment they failed. You were the mirror, the test, the truth, and the gift. The greatest karma isn't what happens to them. It is what they lost in you. You walked away, not out of hatred, but because your spirit refused to stay where it wasn't honored. And that quiet exit, it is the final strike. It was the final strike. Because when light leaves, darkness is all that is left. You did not just survive them, you outgrew them. And that is the kind of karma no soul ever forgets. That was it for today's episode. I hope you found it insightful. Let's bring this one to an end for now. I will talk to you in the next one. Until then, as always, let the healing begin and continue.